The dusty frontier market was nearly empty when Ethan Cole arrived. The kind of place where unwanted animals and broken tools went to be forgotten. The afternoon sun hung low, casting long shadows over wooden stalls and tired faces. Ethan wasn't looking for anything special, just supplies for his small ranch, but a faint sound stopped him. It was a low, trembling growl, barely louder than the wind. In the darkest corner of the market sat a small wooden cage. Inside it was a puppy, thin and dirty, with grey fur and sharp, watchful eyes that followed every movement. A crooked sign nailed to the cage read, "Dangerous. Don't touch." Most people walked past without a glance, but Ethan knelt down slowly. The puppy pressed itself against the back of the cage, teeth showing, more afraid than angry. The seller noticed Ethan's interest and laughed. He said the pup was bad blood, wild and useless. No one wanted it, and feeding it was a waste of money. Ethan asked how much. The man shrugged and said, "Give me 25 cents before I get rid of it." Without arguing, Ethan reached into his pocket and placed the coin in the man's hand. As Ethan lifted the cage, the puppy growled again, but it didn't try to bite. Its eyes locked onto Ethan's, and for a moment everything else faded away. Ethan saw something familiar there, fear mixed with hope. That night at the ranch, the puppy refused food, snapped at shadows, and curled up alone in the corner of the barn. Ethan didn't push him. He simply sat nearby until the puppy fell asleep. The next morning, the town was already talking. They warned Ethan that the animal would bring trouble, that some creatures were born dangerous. Ethan only smiled and said nothing. Deep down, he felt certain of one thing. This puppy wasn't dangerous. He was just waiting for someone to give him a chance. The first days with the puppy tested Ethan's patience in ways he had never known. The small barn became a place of constant tension, filled with sudden snarls, snapping teeth, and the sharp sound of wood splintering under frantic claws. The puppy destroyed a fence panel on the second night and nearly broke free, as if the wild itself were calling him back. Ethan's hands were scratched and bleeding, but he never shouted, never raised a hand. He understood that fear often looked like anger. Feeding time was the hardest. The puppy circled the bowl like a trapped animal, growling at Ethan even when hunger twisted his thin body. Ethan began placing the food down and stepping back, sitting quietly on the dirt floor. Slowly, day by day, the puppy ate without snapping. He still watched Ethan closely, but the pure panic in his eyes began to fade, replaced by cautious curiosity. The nights were worse. Howls echoed across the land, long and haunting, waking nearby ranchers and stirring old fears. People in town started to complain. They said the animal was dangerous, that it would attack livestock or children. Some demanded Ethan get rid of it. Before someone got hurt, Ethan listened without arguing, though doubt crept into his thoughts during the loneliest hours before dawn. One cold night, coyotes surrounded the ranch, their eyes glowing in the dark. Ethan reached for his rifle, but before he could move, the puppy stepped forward. His body was tense, his stance firm, yet he did not run or attack. He stood his ground, placing himself between Ethan and the shadows. The coyotes eventually faded back into the night. In that moment, Ethan realized something had changed. The puppy had made a choice. Despite fear, despite instinct, he stayed. For the first time, Ethan believed that trust was growing. Slowly, painfully, but growing all the same. By the 6th week, the change was impossible to ignore. The puppy no longer lunged at every movement or growled at Ethan's shadow. His steps were still cautious, but they were no longer wild. He began to follow Ethan around the ranch, keeping a short distance at first, then slowly closing the gap. When Ethan spoke, the puppy tilted his head as if listening, trying to understand. Trust, once fragile, was starting to take shape. Ethan began giving simple commands, never forcing obedience. Sometimes the puppy ignored him. Sometimes he tried and failed. But Ethan rewarded every effort with patience instead of anger. The animal's sharp instincts remained, yet they were no longer uncontrolled. His eyes, once hard and distant, now softened whenever Ethan returned from a long day's work. He even started waiting near the fence, ears alert, tail low but wagging slightly when Ethan appeared. Then the storm came. Thunder cracked across the sky late one evening. followed by a blinding flash of lightning that struck the dry northern fields. Within minutes, fire spread fast, driven by wind and fear. Smoke thickened the air, turning the ranch into chaos. Horses screamed and broke loose, flames blocking the usual escape path. Ethan tried to guide the animals out, but the smoke burned his lungs and blinded him. Panic set in as the fire closed in. Out of the smoke, the puppy appeared. His fur was darkened with ash, his eyes sharp and focused. He barked sharply, then grabbed Ethan's sleeve and pulled. Ethan resisted at first, confused, but the puppy tugged again with desperate strength. Trusting him, Ethan followed. The puppy led him through a narrow gap between rocks, a path hidden from sight and free from flames. They emerged coughing but alive. As the fire roared behind them, Ethan dropped to his knees, pulling the puppy close. In that moment he understood the truth. The animal everyone feared had chosen not just loyalty but courage. 3 months passed, and the ranch no longer felt like a place of tension. The puppy, now stronger and taller, moved with calm confidence beside Ethan. His coat had filled out. His posture was steady, and the wild fear that once ruled him was gone. People in town still watched from a distance, but their whispers had softened into quiet. Curiosity. No one could deny that the dangerous animal had changed. The day of the annual cattle drive arrived, drawing ranchers, travelers and families from nearby areas. It was a noisy, crowded event filled with shouting horses and restless herds, exactly. The kind of place everyone believed the dog would lose control. Ethan arrived without a leash. Dog stayed close to his leg, alert but calm, ignoring the chaos around him. When part of the herd suddenly broke away, panic spread across the field. Riders shouted and horses reared as cattle scattered toward open land. Before Ethan could react, the dog moved. He ran with speed and purpose, circling the animals, guiding them back with precise movements and sharp awareness. He never bit, never barked wildly. He simply worked, reading the herd as if he had done it all his life. The crowd fell silent, watching in disbelief as the chaos turned into order. Children stepped closer. The dog sat calmly. When they approached, allowing small hands to touch his fur, the same people who once warned, Ethan now stood amazed. Some even applauded. Ethan knelt and rested a hand on the dog's head, his eyes heavy with emotion. He knew what no one else fully understood. This transformation had not come from fear or control, but from patience, trust, and quiet kindness. In 3 short months, a creature once labeled dangerous had become something rare and powerful, a symbol of what belief can truly change. Years passed, and the story of the puppy spread far beyond the dusty town where it began. Travelers spoke of a ranch, protected by a dog unlike any other, one who moved with quiet strength and watched the land as if it were part of him. The dog grew older, his steps slower, his muzzle touched with gray, but his presence remained powerful. He stayed by Ethan's side through long days and colder nights, a constant shadow of loyalty. The ranch flourished under his watch. Livestock stayed safe, strangers were greeted with caution but never cruelty, and children grew up knowing the dog as a gentle guardian. Many who once feared him now trusted him completely. Some even admitted they had been wrong from the beginning. Ethan never reminded them of the past. He simply smiled, knowing that the truth had revealed itself over time. In his final days, the dog rested often, on a hill overlooking the open land he had protected for so long. Ethan sat beside him, speaking softly, remembering the frightened puppy in the cage and the 25 cents that had changed everything. When the dog finally passed, it was peacefully, with Ethan's hand resting on his fur. Ethan buried him on that hill, marking the place with a simple wooden stone. There were no grand words, just a quiet message carved into the wood, meant for anyone who stopped to read it. It said that some souls are not dangerous, only misunderstood. Long after, people still told the story, not of a wild beast, but of faith, patience, and the powerful change that can happen when someone chooses to believe.